Right, chapter 12 of Atonement then. He's almost calm before the storm, really. Jackson and Piero have just gone missing, and then in the chapter after this we get sort of Bryony's perspective of what's happened, where she sees this rape. But for chapter 12 everything pauses. It's following Emily Tallis. So she knows that her nephews have gone missing, she knows that Lola's sort of left the room as well, and she pauses. She doesn't really do anything, and this chapter follows that not really doing anything. Okay, a bit of an odd chapter, but there's a lot I think that's worth looking at. Firstly, at the bottom of page 145, we're told Emily sighed, failed to hear herself quite, and sighed again. So she's actually sighing, not through, genuine resignation, but just to hear herself do it. She's playing up to that role of this weak, put-upon woman, and she's doing it as a performance. It's a role that she's playing. About halfway down page 147, she's dwelling on Lola, and Emily gets quite irritated by Lola, because Lola reminds Emily of Hermione, who is Lola's mother, Emily's sister. And she thinks about what Lola said, "Mummy will kill me indeed," but it was Mummy whose spirit she was keeping alive. There's the idea there that Lola is very much her mother's daughter. Lola is the way she is because Hermione, her mum, was the way she was. So we see parents influencing children. It's not just Bryony who's made the way she is by Emily, but Lola is also a product of her parents. All children, whatever we think of them, seem to be products of their parents. Towards the bottom of page 147, we get how like Hermione Lola was to remain guiltless while others destroyed themselves at her prompting. And that again I think works incredibly well as a bit of irony, because that's exactly what happens with Bryony, isn't it? It's Bryony who destroys Robbie and Cecilia. Lola sort of keeps her hands very clean of it by just not saying anything. About a third of the way down page 148, Emily's contemplating what to do, and we get the line, "Another reason not to dial PC Vockins was." Okay, McEwan's using that word, another reason, like it's a list, like Emily's listing to herself reasons not to take action. It shows the determination almost to do nothing. Another reason was. Okay, great little bit of language and sentence structure to pick apart that shows us Emily's role. She's making excuses for herself. Just over halfway down page 148, she thinks about the fact that her husband is probably having an affair. She lets it happen. She doesn't let anything. She doesn't bring the matter up. She lets it go on. Again, a passive woman. And we're told if this sham was conventional hypocrisy, she had to concede that it had its uses. She's happy to accept this illusion of the nuclear family, even though she knows it's fake. Again, Emily is stuck in the past. She's part of this old world. She's not willing to change anything. So partly, children need to break away from parents, okay, because Lola and Bryony are set up because of their parents. We get that idea added to towards the bottom of page 148. Emily decides that she's a wronged child and a wronged wife. The line, wronged child, wronged wife. So a repetitive sort of sentence structure. The idea again that the way she's been brought up has made Emily carry on. She was a victim as a child. Hermione got all the attention. Now she's a victim as a wife. She's not letting her husband have an affair. Okay, her childhood has prepared her for her adulthood. This is why sometimes in Atonement a loss of innocence isn't a bad thing, because a loss of innocence can sometimes be breaking away from these parental strings, forging your own life, which needs to happen, because otherwise you get this cycle. We're told that one role had prepared her for the other. She's playing roles and it's been set up since her own childhood. Towards the bottom of page 149, we get the talk of how the war impacts Emily, and it only impacts her through her husband's work. Okay, and we're told for every 1 tonne of explosive dropped, assume 50 casualties. Assume 100,000 tonnes of bombs dropped in 2 weeks, result 5 million casualties. McEwan uses a very list-like structure, uses numbers, uses statistics to show how for Emily the war doesn't have any emotional impact. It's all just numbers, it's abstract, it's separate, it's just sums to be calculated. There's no idea of the human cost there. Again, it's the idea that the Tallises are in a bubble, that Bryony's childhood is a bubble before her guilt and the war both sort of make her accept that she's got to leave that. About halfway down page 150, we get a great line. No one else she knew had her knack of keeping still. Again, Emily's greatest knack is to keep still, to do nothing. She is the passive woman. Very bottom of page 150, she's thinking about Bryony, and it says it was the slow retraction, the retreat into autonomy, which signalled the approaching end of Bryony's childhood. And Emily's really upset about that. Emily doesn't want Bryony to grow up. Okay, so again, we get the idea that sometimes losing childhood innocence isn't entirely a bad thing in Atonement. It allows Bryony to break away from her mother. Remember in part 3, she doesn't tell her mother anything in the letters. She's broken away. It's not always a bad thing. Her mother's caused a lot of Bryony's issues, a lot of these determination for stories. Bryony needs to break away. Towards the bottom of page 151, she starts to dwell on Robbie, and we're told, but really he was a hobby of Jack's, her husband, and living proof of some levelling principle he had pursued through the years. When he spoke about Robbie, which wasn't often, it was with a touch of self-righteous vindication. The idea is that Jack Tallis only helps Robbie for his own ends. He wants to do it almost as a charity to help this working class guy. Okay, but actually, again, we see Robbie is defined by his class. For Jack Tallis, who tries to help him, just like Bryony, who sees him as a monster, he's defined by his class. Again, Emily's part of this old world with those clear social distinctions. We're not going to get change till that heat wave is destroyed by the storm, till that way of life goes out, till the vase and everything it represents is destroyed. We get towards the top of page 152, nothing good will come of it, was the phrase she often used, okay, about Robbie. There's that idea almost that Bryony's almost, I think, blaming Emily in retrospect, isn't she? You know, seeing Emily as this character who's judging Robbie based on his social class, even though she's made the same mistake. And then we get towards the bottom of page 152, about 3/4 of the way down, we get what Paul Marshall has told her. To produce a ton of the stuff, the chocolate, he had explained over his astonishing cocktail, cost next to nothing. He could undercut his competitors and increase his profit margin. Vulgarly put, but what comfort, what untroubled years might flow from these cheap vats. Emily's thinking that Paul Marshall might be a great husband for Cecilia because he's going to be rich. But what we're told about him there really links the context and his role as a character. He's going to get rich out of the war. He looks at the war, just like Emily, and sees it as totally abstract. But he sees numbers in terms of profit. He sees what he can make from it. Okay? And contextually, we get sort of towards the end of the war, the real growth of capitalism, the growth of big businesses, the growth of people making a lot of money. And McEwan links that to Paul Marshall, okay, this rapist, this unpleasant figure, because he's capitalising and exploiting other people. That's seen even more clearly towards the bottom of page 153, when it's commented that Paul Marshall's business is ploughshares into tinfoil. Now that comes from a biblical expression, okay? The biblical expression is swords into ploughshares. What that means is take weapons of war and turn them into something useful. Turn them into ploughs to get food. Get rid of your weapons, turn them into food, okay? But Paul Marshall's doing something else, isn't he? Ploughshares into tinfoil. In other words, taking useful things and turning them into tinfoil, something cheap, a commodity that he can make a lot of money from, okay? So again, the biblical reference, just like in Hard Times, is reminding us that Paul Marshall is this very anti-Christian character, this very dangerous character. He hints at his danger because he's taking valuable things and he's exploiting them. He's making stuff out of people's suffering. She talks to Jack, Emily, and about a third of the way down page 154, straight away he says, I'm going to call the police. So we see his decisive action against her indecisive action. She's been listing reasons not to do it. About halfway down page 154, Lola re-enters. Okay, they bring Lola in and they're about to tell Emily what's happened. The fact that Bryony's saying that Robbie's raped her. And we're told Lola's face was so white and rigid, like a clay mask. I love that symbol, because on the one hand it's innocent. It's a massive contradiction. On the one hand, her face is white. Lola is innocent. She's a child who's just been raped. On the other hand, she's like a clay mask. She's not giving anything away. She's letting Robbie get blamed for it. And that image is perfect. It sums up the contradiction of Lola. On the one hand, she's this innocent victim. On the other hand, she's this very dangerous, inhuman character who can let other people take the blame. Great symbol for Lola there. And then, right towards the end of the chapter on page 155, last couple of lines, we're told helplessly she let herself be guided towards the drawing room. Again, just like Mrs. Gradgrind, she's this weak woman who's letting herself, she let herself be guided, who's let this happen. Okay, so very short but very useful chapter. That's chapter 12.